Roger, give me that gun run. Right along that back, baby. Aim hard. Clear hard.
Ladies, gents, how's it going? Random Gary here, back for my first Gallantry reaction video since I've moved house. We are in. It's a fantastic location. I did have a nightmare with my internet, so apologies for the delay. It's Remembrance here in the UK. What is Remembrance? Well, it's from the old Armistice Day, the 11th hour of the 11th month. Whenever the armistice was signed between the warring nations in the First World War. I've chosen quite a powerful kind of a TV show to review here, to react to. This is Blackadder. If you haven't seen Blackadder, it is an incredible comedy show. You need to watch it. They went through a number of different eras, and in one of their most profound moments, they settled on the First World War. Now we have a number of main characters here. I'm sure you will notice them, even if you haven't seen Blackadder before. There's some fantastic actors in it. But we're going to look at the last moments of the last episode of the World War One episode of it. I can't remember it off the top of my head. That's my medication hitting in. If you've watched my other video that'll come out before this one, yes, you'll understand why that is so important. So here we go. This is Blackadder.
How are you feeling, darling?
He's not calling him darling, that's his name.
Not all that good, Blackadder. Rather hoped I'd get through the whole show. Go back to work at Pratt & Sons. Keep wicket for the Croydon gentleman. Married Doris. Made a note in my diary on the way here. Simply says, bugger.
Well, quite.
So they've been informed that they're going over the top, and actually this is something that's overlooked quite a bit. The officers knew exactly what they were going to, but they still had to boost the morale of the men. The senior enlisted kind of folk, the sergeants, the sergeant majors, you know, the experienced corporals, they would have known exactly what they were going to. The privates probably would have been lied to, but once you get up to those front echelons, to those kind of forward trenches, there is no hiding the horror. There is no hiding the horror. So they would have had some idea, but the officers, the senior non-commissioned officers, the NCOs, they would have been the ones who kept them focused on the job that they needed to do.
Come on, let's move.
Fix bayonets.
Don't forget your stick, Lieutenant.
Right there, sir. Wouldn't want to face a machine gun without this.
It's funny, isn't it? They used to have old revolvers. And in the military, we always used to say the smaller the stick, the more important the individual was. And actually, that's quite true. The higher through the ranks you go, and the smaller the stick you have, the more important you are. Actually, it's true, isn't it? If they've got a really small stick and they're facing the enemy with it, they must be hard gets.
Listen, our guns have stopped.
You don't think...
Maybe the war's over. Maybe it's peace.
Oh, hurrah! The big knobs have got round the table and yanked the iron out of the fire.
Thank God. We lived through it. The Great War, 1914 to 1917.
Hip, hip! Hooray!
1917. Oh. So, talking from a military sense here, we didn't really have the capability to use forward observation officers at this time. And what I mean by that there is those people who go forward and who coordinate and call in the big bangs on the battlefield. So what we done was we worked off really scripted fire plans. So at each hour, you would be engaging into the trenches. There were probably Puri fires coming up to each hour, and then each hour, the fires would either creep, and what they would try to do is land in the next layer of trenches, in the next layer of enemy trenches, or they would stop completely. And that was to create the space for our troops to get up and get through. Now, what this meant in reality was back then, whenever the fuse types and the ammunition types were not fantastic, was the enemy soldiers could quite often take cover in very deep dugout positions. And the second that the fires were switched, or the second that the fire stopped, it meant that they could come up and actually attend their posts. They could come up and get on them quite quickly. So how effective was it? Probably not effective at all. And the other problem that we had with pre-fires was because they were set to a schedule. There was a very famous incident, I believe, where it was one of the Ulster battalions or one of the Irish. They actually got into the trenches. They fought through the positions. They fought through the positions quicker than they thought they were, and because the artillery were working off a fire plan, they actually ended up engaging into their own position. They broke through, and then that fire actually crept through on top of them again. So there were numerous occasions where this rigid kind of program. Why was this the case? Well, it was in a lot of the instances, it was before real portable radios. A lot of the communications were hardwired, and it was really, really difficult for the forward observers to be able to send those messages back. It's actually where the saying flaggies come from onboard ships and from signals. They would hold up flags had different shapes on them, and depending on what kind of signal they gave back would be what the communication was. So that's why sometimes signalers are called flaggies. Back then, they didn't have that over the air capability to communicate, so we ended up using those fire plans, which weren't great, weren't brilliant.
I'm afraid not. The guns have stopped because we're about to attack. Not even our generals are mad enough to shell their own men. They think it's far more sporting to let the Germans do it.
So we are, in fact, going over. This is, as they say, it.
I'm afraid so. Unless I can think of something very quickly.
Company, 1 pace forward.
Oh, there's a knife.
And what you'll hear is a specific set of words of command, and that's the military's method of trying to get a response out of a soldier in a really high pressure, high stressful situation. If you give really familiar words of command that have a very specific response to them, it's more likely they will do it. There's also a tradition from the trenches as well, which we call gunfire. I think it's called gunfire. And basically what used to happen on the morning whenever they were often going over the top was they would get a tea or coffee, whatever was available, with a load of rum or a load of whiskey mixed into it. And on our battery birthday, on our regimental birthdays or anything, our seniors, our officers would come round and actually wake us up at about 7 o'clock in the morning with some gunfire. We get woken up in the morning with gunfire. Now, the belief was it was a little bit of Dutch courage, but I'm unsure if it was just the lads had managed to get a load of drink, and that was their way of getting it in and amongst everybody. Let's make a tradition whenever there isn't a tradition already.
Nasty splinter on that ladder, sir. A bloke could hurt himself on that.
Stand ready.
I have a plan, sir.
Really, Bulrick? A cunning and subtle one?
Yes, sir.
As cunning as a fox who's just been appointed Professor of Cunning at Oxford University?
Yes, sir.
On the signal, company will advance.
Well, I'm afraid it'll have to wait. Whatever it was, I'm sure it was better than my plan to get out of this by pretending to be mad. I mean, who would have noticed another madman around here? Good luck, everyone.
Powerful. I just want to pull to life one of those kind of elements there. So one of the most incredible things that I ever done was a battlefield tour. We went out to a place called Thiepval. I think that's how you say it in French. I think it's always really important. We call it Thiepval, where I'm from in Northern Ireland. We've got a camp not far from where I live called Thiepval, but I think it's called Thiepval, and it's really synonymous in Ulster history. As you can see, the Ulster kind of regiments fought significantly there. Now, whenever we went on this battlefield tour, we got picked up at around about 2:30 in the morning. We got driven out into the countryside, all black lights, as in no lights on board the bus or anything. We got taken off this bus and we got told, keep your eyes closed, and we got these blindfolds put on us, and we had to put our hand on the shoulder of the man in front, and then we got walked through what felt like tree line, this massive woods, and we kept zigzagging, and we must have walked for what felt like an hour and a half. And then somebody come along and turned around and they put us on our backsides, and we all sat down, and they just kept walking along and making sure that we were all sitting up and we were all still awake. And then it felt like it must have been about another hour and a half. Just sat there with nothing, nobody saying anything. All we could hear was this old person walking up and down. And then next minute, somebody just screamed right in front of us, "Fix bayonets!" And we're like, shit, just been nodding off there for the last hour and a half. And then the battlefield, the guide, he turned around, he went, "Take your blindfolds off." All took our blindfolds off, and then he turned around and he walked down and he went, "Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and he gave us all numbers. And then he turned and he says, "Turn round and face the enemy." And we turned around and looked out, and we were in this tree line, and all we could see was this hill slowly raising up in front of us. It was just dawn, just coming dawn. And it was this really kind of, it was a horrible hill. It was a concave hill. If you were fighting up it, there was no cover. There was no cover, and everything at the top could just see down, straight down into it. And you heard there, "Company will advance," on the signal, and he blew his whistle. And as we started walking forward, we got up and he turned around. He was like, "Walk, don't run, walk." And then all of a sudden he turned around and he says, "As I shout your number, take a knee. As I shout your number, take a knee." And he started going 12, 16, 4, 8, 7. And slowly everybody just took a knee. Boom, 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 boom. Over the course of about 40 meters. And by the end of this 40 meters, my whole platoon, everybody within my platoon was taking a knee in training. And he turned around and he went, and he shouted out 3 numbers, and he said, "Raise your hands," in 3 numbers. And I just happened to be one. We raised our hands, and he went, "You survived today. You 3 survived today." And we were all like, wow. And then he said my number, and I was like, "Yep." And he turned around and he went, "You're the only one that survived the war." And he walked down and he handed out a bit of paper, and he was like, "Against each number is a name. Find out who you were. Let's go and visit it." And he took us up to like the graves, and I can't find a particular grave. I wish I could, but if you just look all over this countryside here, there are just little graves all over the place. And typically what happened was, where the soldiers fell, they would dig graves and they would put them in. Where were they? I was just looking at them a minute ago here. So likes of here. And we were basically walking up a hill like this here, and he took us across into these graves. And in these graves, you will see there is just row after row of soldiers. And we went in here, we went in with our names. We were able to have a look and find out where the soldiers were. As you can see, again, just graves all over this place here. Just all over. It is absolutely unbelievable. Little memorials all over the place. And it was just sobering. It was absolutely sobering that there were these many graves out here. What else was remarkable? Look, just more. Everywhere you look. Graves all over this location. Imagine fighting across this. There is no cover. There is no cover. And it's one thing that I always kind of remembered from my time in the military. I always remember people saying they reinforced failure in the First World War, and they absolutely did. They just reinforced failure. They kept doing the same technique time and time again. It's the definition of insanity, isn't it? They kept doing the same thing time and time again, hoping for a different solution, and it was just never coming. It was just never coming. And it just blows my mind. It just blows my mind. And as kind of funny as Blackadder was at times, it was just so realistic, because that was the reality of it. You've just got trench systems. You've got multiple graves just all over the place over here. Actually, there was one here, wasn't there? Was it Broken Tree or something? Let's have a look. Broken Tree. Here it is. Here it is. Danger Tree. That's my medication playing me trouble. Look at these trench lines. It's just insane to think that these are still here. It is just insane to think that these are still here. These scars of war. And it has this single tree in this location on the war itself. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Ladies, gents, if you have any recommendations for me, please bang them into the comment section. Something a little bit different today. I hope I don't get hit with copyright from Blackadder. Fingers crossed they realise that it's done from a place of great sincerity, and I hope to see us all again very soon. Have a great week. Goodbye.